Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Rosham Joe Paints. As always, my name is Joe and today I'm going to be painting the Primaris Judicar from the Indomitus box set, continuing my work on that, as well as reminding myself that I need to clean my desk up a little bit. I did a little bit of rearranging, but that just left me with a lot of stuff that I need to find a home for. Anyway, that has nothing to do with the Judicar, but I just, thought I'd share that with you. So I did a paint prep video for this one because we did do a little bit of a kit bash where I took a couple different parts and put it on there, so you'll notice it's not the exact Primaris Judicar that you may have in your own box of Indomitus, but you could follow that if you had the parts for it, or for the most part the paint is still going to be approximately the same. So all that aside, let's get into it. So let's get this started. Now the first step when you're painting anything black after you've sprayed with Chaos Black is to cover the model once again with Abaddon Black on the parts that are going to remain black. Now the reason you would do this is because I've been told that the sheen or finish of the Abaddon Black is different than that of the Chaos Black, and you will get a different, basically if you're trying to do touch-ups with Abaddon Black over the Chaos Black, it shows. Now, I hadn't seen this for myself, so what I did is I put together a little experiment. And so what you can see in this first picture is that I actually did the one wing all in Abaddon Black and left the rest in Chaos Black. Except that's not quite true, because what I did is I actually put only half of the wing is actually painted in the Chaos Black, or rather Abaddon Black, while the rest still remains in Chaos Black. Except that's also not true, because the picture is inverted from when I took it, and this wing over here is actually the one that has the Abaddon Black. Now, that goes to show that I can't tell the difference, but that doesn't mean that there isn't a difference. So, in order to get a nice, clean coverage of the Abaddon Black in general and get a good starting point, we would go through and paint all of the pieces here in a little bit of Abaddon, just to make sure that it has the same finish over everything. That of course, is going to be things like the armor and the metal of the wings, and that's basically it. So Abaddon Black is a really easy step, and it's already done. So what we're going to move on right away is actually with a little bit of Dark Reaper. Now, Dark Reaper is going to be my first highlight. Now, the first highlight can be a little thicker, but I'm still going to try to keep it nice and clean. And it is going to be an edge highlight around all of the pieces which we just did in Abaddon Black. So that is all of, again, the armor, the wing pieces, and things like that. And I like to go in here with a fine point. It can be a heavier, or it can be a thicker brush. Like I got it's a pretty thick brush. This is what size is this? Regiment of the Wargamer, whatever that is. But it's a little bit thicker, but it holds a little paint and it stays wet a little longer. And because we are going over Abaddon Black, the nice thing is let's say I wanted to get fancy and paint this whole side in this color. Well, I can do that because Abaddon Black covers really well because it's black. But instead of getting fancy, if we just said, okay, well, we're going to edge highlight here, make this nice little neat line right here. And unfortunately, I don't have the greatest brush control ever, or something along those lines. What I can then do is wash my brush off a little bit, go back and get a thin coat, so a little bit of watered down Abaddon Black, and I can come back here and obviously cover up the portion that I got fancy on. And now we know it's going to dry the same as the rest of the base coat that we just did. But you can also come in here, and if you need to thin down that line you just made because you want a really clean line, you can do this. And this goes for pretty much any color that you are going to be putting on and then edge highlighting later. You can always go back and fix it. The hard part is if you do something like, you've dry brushed, or you've obviously if you've airbrushed, or if you've you know, used a shade when the color is not the same as it would be just straight out of the pot. Well, then it gets a little more difficult, but you can play around with it. You know, you can always try to shade a little bit. You can use glazes just to tie the colors back together. I guess the best advice is to just don't make any mistakes ever. There you go. But so anyways, I'm going to go and do all of the edge highlighting around this entire chest, leg. I already started back here, so, you know, because I want to get as much of that Dark Reaper into here, because once I start painting this cloak, I'm not going back. So I don't want to end up messing up, hitting the sides or anything like that. So a little bit Dark Reaper just on the hard edges, up here, up there. I don't think there's actually any soft joints, like the soft armor joints that are normally black that then you paint with a little bit of gray to highlight. I don't think this model actually has any, and if it does, they're really well hidden. So so we may not even have to worry about Eshin Grey or what's the other one? Dawnstone. So, all right, edge highlighting, and then we will return for maybe something else. Am I shaking this whole thing? Oh my goodness. That entire segment, I just realized I was shaking my leg, which shakes the camera. You know, it's these fun little things you learn, you know, when you're doing this for fun and not professionally. Next up, we're going to look at adding a little bit of lead belcher to all of our pieces, which are going to be in a silver metallic metal. This includes things like this sword that I am painting, but also little rivets here and there, which you don't have to do at this point because we'll go back later and add a little bit of the Runefang Steel when we're doing a edge highlighting of the metals. You could just do that over the top. If you feel like doing a little bit of the lead belcher, by all means, go ahead and do that. I don't feel the need to. I did test it out, but didn't go too well. So anyways, so we're gonna do that. Things on the face are things like those hoses right there. And then on the backpack, I just did the exhaust ports, whatever those are, as well as from the side you can see the little, again, I don't know what they are, but they're little balls that are colored in with silver. So as well as dotting this a little bit here and there. Normally with these backpacks, I like to actually make the things surrounding it silver as well. Wash my brush off here, I'll show you. So like with this, the sergeant of the veteran squad here, notice that the ring around this backpack is done with silver, and I just like doing that because it gives it a little more contrast on the backpack instead of just being like straight one color the entire way with just highlights on it. And then, you know, you got obviously these exhaust ports and whatever this ventilation type of situation they got going on there is. I like circling that ring. But because of the conversion that I did where the wings are glued directly onto it, I didn't want to then go and do metal around the circle and then have to continue metal up over the top. I wanted it to all be black, so I figured, you know what, I'm just going to do that. We'll be adding white here later, so that'll break up the plain blackness of it. But moving on to the body, we had the pistol grip. Obviously, like I said, like you could do all of these little rivets if you want. We're going to end up doing them later. A couple little chains here. Don't forget to do the pistol in the front as well. And then finally, moving on to the hands. And that is where you have the entire chain over the top and down. And, you know, since it's all apart and easy, you can get to the back as well. So that is it for the lead belcher. I'm going to finish up just doing a couple, maybe 2 total base coats of lead belcher on the sword here. The rest of them are all finished at this point, and we'll move on to maybe doing a little bit of the golds. All right, so let me go through a couple of pieces we've done in the Retributor Armor, which is the gold that we're going to be doing. Just this one, and we're already out of focus. We started this section amazing me. Just that one little skull and symbol on the back there. That's all that's going to be on the backpack, and we got nothing on the face as of right now that is going to be gold, so I will move those aside. A lot of little details. We got the over the shoulder. This is now a shoulder. So over the knee, We got that, and as well as the symbol being gold. The lockbox hanging off decoration. The decoration, as well as, again, kind of the same thing going on here and here. You could do some of these in silver. I'm going to make them gold because I like the gold. I love gold. And then I do the bottoms of the gun casing in Retributor Armor as well. Then you've got the pommel and the crossguard, the pommel, now that you can see it, and the crossguard of the sword, as well as decorations up there. And then pretty much the entire hourglass, as well as, again, the cross that's hanging off there. We're going to come back and touch up a little of that where I spilled with some, or went overboard with the gold. We will touch that up in some lead belcher, and then this whole hourglass is going to get painted black again, or whatever color I end up wanting to make the sand. So that is all that. The last thing to do here is to paint a little bit of the shoulder on camera so y'all can see what it looks like to stop shaking the camera, Joe, to paint gold. Very simple, just like that, and we're done. No. Probably one or two coats. The black shows through on the first coat, depending on how much paint you're putting down. I would recommend don't put it down too heavily, simply because you don't want it to gum up any of the details. You want it to be nice and thin, but because you also want it to be nice and bright, we're going to do multiple coats. The other part on this shoulder pad is, so we're going to come across the front here, but so like this guy right here, and then we're also going to paint that skull. You may not be able to see it, but you might. I don't know. Depends on what you're watching this on and how good I show it off. But so this pad under here, there's like a pad and then a shoulder pad on top of it. That lower pad is going to stay black. So I've already outlined or edge highlighted that in the Dark Reaper as well. And since the inside of the shoulder, since I am doing fulminators, is going to be white, I'm just going to go ahead and hit all of this however I feel like, because I have not done my white base coat yet. So I'm not going to paint the whole thing, obviously, because that would just be giving myself extra work to do. But I'm also not going to concern myself with trying to make a nice crisp line just quite yet. So I will finish off the Retributor Armor here, and then, I don't know, maybe we'll shade them, and we'll probably move on to more base coats. How about that? But let me finish this up first so you can see what all the gold is now looking like. Wait, before I go, before you go, before anybody else goes. One step, which I'm not going to show because I already did it and I just forgot about it, was I think I had mentioned this earlier, that a lot of the black is going to be in the Dark Reaper, and that maybe the soft joints aren't shown. But the soft joints, basically this one piece underneath the arm, that's where it shows. And the only reason I even saw that was because I was checking out a picture to see how much of this arm band thing, what is it? It's like a purity seal, but then there's also, it's kind of like wrapped around his arm. So I wanted to know how much of that I was going to paint with that base coat, and happened to see that, oh, look, you can see that. Now, again, can you see it once it's on the model? Maybe not, but it's there, and we're disassembled, or we're not fully assembled. So, hey, might as well paint it. You'll note that I hit the glove plenty of times there. Mainly, I just tried to be careful going around any of the black armor with both the silvers and the golds. But since we haven't done the gloves yet, you know, we got some time. Oh, let me show you that. It's on the piece I'm holding. That ring right there. I don't know who wears rings over thick leather gloves, but this is one of those guys. Just be careful when you're painting that. If you've already painted the red of the glove as a test piece, because then you're going to end up having to redo it again like I did. So, all right, gold is done, or first coat of the gold is done. I'm going to go back, touch up whatever I need to touch up, and then we will move on. So with our gold complete, I'm now going to use a base coat of Celestra Grey, and that is to basically start blocking in all of the whites. The goal here is to not make it in one pass, because probably at that point the paint would be far too thick. So again, as with all, we go with light coats. Painting in white is kind of a pain. Yellows, oranges, and whites, for some reason, just have a knack of just, giving me a little bit of extra trouble. But, you know, you just be patient with them and you'll make it. So like right there, this is probably as far as I'll go with the, maybe I'll get a little bit here. But on the first pass, I'm not going to try to get into really, really deep up next to those lines. Just close enough, and overall I don't want, or I want it to lay down smooth, right? I can always do a bunch of coats here, but getting the lines nice and smooth, like right there. See how I was playing with it and it started messing up? That was my sign to just put it down. Now the other piece we're going to do that's going to be white, being as they are fulminators, usually I would put a little bit more white on here, but maybe I'll do the handle. Nope, that's going to be, basically it's going to be, I don't know. What else could be white here? I don't know. First, let me show you. It's going to be the wings. So we're going to start there. And down here at the base, you know, I'm just going to give nice quick strokes and not really be too concerned about if it's getting, you know, messy or not right away. As the paint kind of like, as I run out of the paint on the brush, I'm going to come back and do, you know, slower and try to pull. See, like, I don't know if you can see that. It's almost like the paint's pooling where the two feathers meet. I just want to make sure I'm going over that and getting rid of that. I don't want any of those to be a high spot because I want a nice crisp line. So do that all the way up to the top. And then when we get closer to the top, I'm going to switch to a smaller brush. And I'm going to try and do, you could do this also on the shoulder pad too if you have that. But basically I don't want to cover up the line here. I just want to, you know, I just want to be quiet as I try to do it. Now what's going to happen later on is you can come in here with some shade. In fact, that's what I'm going to do. And so if you're close enough, even if you get a little bit of white where you don't want it, when you come in here with the shade, that's going to basically cover up that whole section and make it look nice and clean. Or you could come back in with some of your black and cover that up. But the neater you are, then the less you have to try and fix later, because you always mess up while you're trying to clean up. While you're trying to clean up. So, anyways, yeah. So I'm gonna go do both sides of these wings, front and back, obviously, and probably a couple of coats on the shoulder pad. And then once that is all completed, we'll probably do, would it be time to parchment paper, some of the pinks maybe. We're gonna try to do all of the base coats for all of this, and then we'll do all the shades. And then after that, we are going to do lots and lots and lots. And then once we've done that, even more scratches and stipples, because we're going to try to make this leather look like a different texture than the metal. We'll see what we end up with. So for all that, let me go ahead and do the whites. With the white now complete, we are going to move on to doing Zandri Dust, as well as some Screamer Pink, which sounds like a great combination for things like the face, which is just Zandri Dust, no Screamer Pink need apply. But the parchment paper that wraps around for the purity seals of there's the wax, the purity seal, as well as the actual paper. And I went ahead and did the whole, like it wraps around his arm there. You can kind of see it just goes around the whole thing and wraps there. I did that whole thing because why not? So also there's one more of those that exists on the backpack. Now this is the backpack without the wings, of course, so it would be much easier to get had I not put the wings on. But then, you know, where would the fun be? So thin coat or 3, however many you want to do, of Zandri Dust over this. Just real quick and easy. Just be careful when you're getting near any of the other parts you already painted, because, you know, we don't want to paint over those. Now, we haven't shaded any of them yet. We haven't done any real detail work on them, so it would be easy enough to repair it. But hey, if you can If you can be careful, why not? So that is that step already done, since I already completed the other ones. And what we're going to move into right away, once I get enough of a first coat on there. I'm doing the first coat just like that. So there you go. So that is the parchment paper. Now, of course, we have the... it just does not want to focus, but that's okay. You could see all the lines in my skin, I guess. No focus. So there you go. All right, what I'm going to do now is move to things like the... That's the helmet. Nope, Screamer Pink on that. Pick up the wrong piece. All right, so on the sword, the handle, I'm going to do in Screamer Pink. So we will just do our best to go around and do not come into contact with the we call it the gold. Maybe grabbing a smaller brush here in a second to go and get into the finer points of that. Also, the purity seal with the wax of the purity seals. We'll run around and hit those with Screamer Pink as well. And I think that'll do it for the Screamer Pink. And that basically is all the base coats done, except for all the leather, which I'm scared of, so I'm waiting until the last second. But first, we'll finish off the Screamer Pink, finish off the Zandri Dust, and then I guess we can go ahead and paint all of the leather, which is a bunch of brown. So, one final note on the Zandri Dust is that I forgot to mention that there's these bone-shaped pieces on the side of the armor that can be covered. None over here because that's covered with robe. Now, what we are going to do is I'm going to try to make these next couple of base coats very simple because, well, they are very simple. We don't have to make them overly complicated, but what they are is the cloak. Just be careful, again, of wherever you've already painted. But we are going to do the cloak in Rhinox Hide. And as you can see, if I've already actually done the bottom, you can see the difference between the black and the brown. And Rhinox Hide goes on pretty well, but you're probably still going to need at least one, or rather, at least 2 coats, maybe 3. Just make sure it's nice and even. But yeah, it's pretty straightforward. And this is going to be the base for our dark leather. And then we will go back and paint. We have 3 separate leather colors that we're going to be painting. So first and foremost, let's get the bulk of the work out of the way and do this. And it'll be also this is the exterior of this this cloak that he's wearing, because inside we're going to put a different color. So just again, be careful around all of the parts you've already painted and give it a couple coats. So we'll go do that and we will come back. With the Rhinox Hide now covering the majority of the robe, or I assume so. I'm currently quite blind because of the amount of staring I was doing at my lights trying to adjust them. But assuming that it's all in place, we're now going to move on to Mournfang Brown. We're going to paint all of the other leather. This is a lighter brown, so it'll be a little bit different than that Rhinox Hide. And we're going to just cover all of the bags, like the holster and the bags back here. That's the only places where we actually have this secondary leather. But we're going to give it a nice couple of base coats to make sure that none of that black is showing through. If you hit any of the other pieces, like we haven't shaded the gold or the silver, so if you hit any of those, go ahead and clean those up. And I think, yeah, then it's up against the brown and it's up against the black back here. The backpack's going to cover some of that. So overall, just clean up if you accidentally hit any of it. You know, if by the off chance you've been blinded by lights, perhaps. Wrapped up like some sort of deuce in the roller in the night. I don't know. Anyways, point is, go ahead and give yourself a nice thin couple base coats of Mournfang Brown over the other leather. And then we will do one more base coat. And then I think we will actually be done with base coats. And I will do a quick something about something for shades. So our Mournfang Brown is now done. And we're going to move on to our final base coat for leather. And originally I was going to use a corn red, and that's actually kind of what I showed off earlier in the video, but I don't know, for some reason I just felt like I needed to tie these guys back in to more of a, I don't know, I just didn't, I think I just wasn't enjoying the red. How about that? I'll just say it that way. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to shoot for a like dark teal blue leather for the gloves, and the way I'm going to get that, hopefully, and I say hopefully, I have a test piece which at least so far it's coming out okay, but I'm going to hide it until the end. But so Incubi Darkness is what I'm going to start with, and so we're going to do the gloves as well as the inside portions that you can see on the robes with this base coat. And again, it'll probably take a couple. And the difference here is the way that I found, I kind of like how it ties in with the black with the Dark Reaper, and then it just looks a little bit better than the red. Now, I didn't mind the look of the red, but I probably for 3 weeks after I did that test piece, I was just sitting there like, man, I wonder if I could do this in a blue, just to kind of remind people that it's an ultramarine. So I will, you know, that's why I landed on Incubi Darkness, because that's obviously the standard ultramarine blue that we use. Yeah. No, anyways, I just did that because it was dark. I didn't want to do like a straight like blue, like a bright blue, which I'm sure there would be a way to like make the Calgar and Calgar blue much darker than my Crag blue, darken it down, all that fun stuff. So, but Incubi Darkness is what I went with. The other thing I was going to mention is that I almost, and it's fun to talk about almosts, right? I mean, why not? Did white leather, but I chickened out at the last second because these are fulminators and I wanted more white on this model, but he is just, I just did not want to try and mess with making this white. If I did, it would probably be something like Celestra Grey, Nuln Oil, and highlighting and dashing and slashing and making little scratches with like Ulthuan and White Scar, as was with my other whites. But no love. Anyways, so there you go. So it's going to be that, but it's going to be like, yeah, that's a pretty bright bluish greenish color for the Incubi Darkness right now. Once we get to the we're gonna dull it down with a lot of Nuln Oil, so it'll be basically, if you look at it quick, it'll look black. That's what I'm going for. So most of this armor, actually, like the brown here, is going to be darkened down with Nuln Oil as well. The how am I going to get on the insides of this? Oh yeah, here we go. So just like this, paint a little bit of that Incubi inside here. And I almost, again, here these almosts are showing up. I almost thought about doing this with Dark Reaper, but I didn't want it to be the exact same color as I highlighted with. And while the highlight is not dulled down with Nuln Oil, I just didn't want it to be the same color. So I chose slightly different. So anyways, we're going to do our Incubi Darkness inside the robe here, so that you can see a little bit in the back there. And then again, it gets darkened down. It's not going to be this bright. Probably do it just barely on the inside here as well. If I can do this without, there we go. So there you go. So it's on the very, very inside. And if you'd like, and I know I would, so I'm going to, I am going to go in here and just do a little bit in here, probably just this whatever coat, probably one coat, because it's not gonna, you're not gonna really see it. Obviously, he's there. There's not gonna be a whole light like getting in there, but just enough because again, I know it's there, so might as well. All right, so with that, we will finish up the last of the base coats, and then we will move on to shading. So to start off, we're going to be using Nuln Oil, and this is going to be for things like the white portions of the wings, the white of the shoulder pad, although rimming it, not just having it across the entire thing, just to keep it clean. Also, we're going to use that on any silver metallics. Next, we're going to use a little bit of Nuln Oil also on any of the leathers that we want to be darker. So this is going to be things like the dark brown of the cloak and the hood, as well as Incubi Darkness pieces on the gloves. Moving on, we're going to also do a little bit of Agrax Earthshade on the lighter leathers, which is just the holster and the pouches. And finally, we are going to move to some Reikland Fleshshade on the gold metallic pieces, which is all of the knee pad, shoulders, and decorations that are hanging from the belt, things like that. Moving into some edge highlights here, we're going to use Stormhost Silver to highlight all of the silver pieces. And this is for things such as the sword here that I'm doing, but also includes pretty much, I think I counted at least something like 55 or so rivets and or buttons on the cloak. And there's rivets on, I think on the shoulder piece. No, shoulder, that's going to be gold. But basically, there are lots of them. So hopefully you enjoy painting rivets because there's plenty to go around. When I'm edge highlighting the sword here, there's also a ridge down the middle. So what I try to do, you can see I've got a little bit of paint on my thumb here. Try to knock off the bulk of the paint because I don't want a whole lot of my brush. And then I'm going to go just really, really super lightly and try to catch just the center. And you might see that starting to show up right about now, as I am just barely squeaking it on there. But you can see there's a little line. If you do hit either side, like when I was doing this side, I actually did, and I just took some like watered down lead belcher and went down this side, and you can see, maybe you can see a little bit right here on this portion of the blade. So I'm actually going to come back here again with just, again, a little bit of watered down lead belcher because we did Nuln Oil over this, so we can't exactly match it, but if I can at least just kind of stipple in a little bit of the darker paint in there to try and cover up that Stormhost, or no, Runefang Steel, Stormhost Silver, same kind of. I'm using Runefang Steel. You could also use Stormhost Silver because Runefang, I think, is the older one that they don't actually use anymore. Anyways, so yeah, so go ahead and hit that best you can just to try and cover up any mistakes. But of course, if you don't make mistakes, well, it's a lot easier then because you don't have to actually fix them. Now, around the letters here, this is going to be a little bit more difficult, but we're going to do the same thing. We're going to get some paint on our brush, and then we're going to knock it off. And then again, I'm going to go as perpendicular. No, that would be this way. As parallel to the blade as we can. And I want almost no, what do you call it? No liquid in here at all. I just want to be able to hear. I forgot this is one of the nights that the sprinklers turns on. Great. Anyways, do this, and you see what I'm doing. I'm just running it very, very carefully just to brighten those letters up a little bit. You don't have to get around every single one. So now I'm going to go turn the sprinklers back off and do some gold highlights. So I'm going to be using this helmet here because I like it, and we already started to tease in a little bit of the leather. And when I say tease in, I mean I'm actually done with that leather piece. But let me show you what the helmet looks like now that I have fully, I think, painted it. So what I did is the skull portion is the Celestra Grey, followed by Nuln Oil in the cracks and in here, as well as Ulthuan Grey then over as a layer with some white scar to highlight just the highest points. You can kind of see there. I think what's funny is I don't like this helmet, but I do like how it turned out. I'm still going to be using the other one, but it's not bad. The eyes are Mephisto red, and then some, I think, Evil Sun's scarlet with a little dot of Uriel yellow. The face covering is actually the same thing as the dark part of the cloak, so that is going to be your Rhinox Hide, Gorthor Brown, Rhinox Hide, Nuln Oil, that is, then Gorthor Brown, and then Baneblade Brown, just kind of scratched in there as a leather piece. Black is your Abaddon Black with Dark Reaper. Overall, it actually came out pretty good. For a little bit, I was actually considering using it, and then silver is obviously the silver. But I still not a huge fan of it. But man, I really, you know what, the Chaplain in this box, not a fan of bear flesh heads, so I might actually, maybe I'll use it for him. I don't know yet, but there it is. If you are painting the Judicar and you are looking for kind of how you can do it, that is how I ended up painting that one. And I think, like I said, it looks okay. Not a fan of the design, but I am a fan of how it came out. So maybe I'll end up using it somewhere else, or maybe it'll just sit up here and stare at me and wonder why it's been cast aside. And since we did a little bit of silver there with our Runefang Steel, let's go ahead and follow that up now by highlighting with Liberator Gold on the golden pieces. So I'm going to be using edge highlighting best I can, and then just adding kind of like a layer over the rounded portions of like the skulls. But a lot of this is just going to be a lot of just kind of hitting the high points of the skulls and things of that manner. Is there anything? Let me show you. Again, I'll bring this one out. So this is a good example of me juggling. No, so you got an edge highlight that goes around the top, and then hit every single one of these little pieces, and then try to hit the rivets the best you can. And then on the, as well as the hourglass here, basically just take your time and go around all, just make it look shiny, It's supposed to be shiny gold, and from, far away, it's doing its job. So let's finish up all of the gold highlights, and then we will move on to more highlights, because it's kind of the place we're at right now. So silver and gold now complete. We are going to move into some pink horror, and the pink horror is going to be for things like this right here, the purity seals, and we're just going to add a little bit of dot on the skull, a little bit on the base, just to give it a little bit of extra contrast. And then we're going to go around the outside as delicately and carefully as possible. You do not have to use a tiny little brush like this. Any brush with a fine point will do. Just make sure you don't have too much paint on the brush. And, like I said in one of the other numerous steps, just be careful with where you're painting it. The other piece that we're going to use the Screamer Pink on is going to be the weapon handle. Now, this is a little more difficult because you got to squint really hard if you're me. And more importantly, you got to have a lot of brush control. So what we're looking to do is we're looking to go just on the two sides here of where the Nuln Oil has rested. Now, there's no point in trying to go around the whole thing all at once. Tiny little brush strokes just like this are fine. You can choose, if you'd like, to do just one side of the separation, but or sometimes what I have been known to do, known just to myself really, is to go ahead and paint the whole thing like this. See how I'm just flagrantly painting over that entire section right there, giving yourself a nice coat, between the three. And you could leave it like that, or let it dry, which I'm not going to because I'm impatient, and then come back with your Screamer Pink, and instead of having to draw two really, really clean lines, you only got to do just the one. I'm going to keep the camera nice and blurry so nobody can see it. All right. That'll give it extra time to dry. So let's see if I can angle this right. And now I'm just going to try to go right down the center of the two. And kind of. I'll take kind of. Basically, just looking to give it a little bit of color instead of just being... There you go. So either way works. Pick your poison, whichever you like more. I think I'm going to go back and do it the other way because I was getting decent results that way. So, but that is your pink horror highlights done. Not done. I'm going to go finish them, then they'll be done. So now we're going to move on to doing some layer with Ushabti Bone, and that is going to be on all of the parchment here, maybe along the sides like that, and like this, and a little bit just in that corner, as well as, we got to go around his arm here. So, and we're doing a layer, and then we will highlight later just on the edges. So, oops, get my thumb out of there so you can kind of see what I'm doing. Never change. So yeah, so there you go. Put a layer on. This is going to be for this parchment, as well as the skull, the helmet that I'm painting. And then watch out, there's some really deep creases here. I'm going to avoid those and just kind of go around them. Some of it looks like damage, I guess. I'm not quite sure. We'll add in some writing later, but just, if you're going to put some extra detail on there, hey, well then I'll, gonna try to call it out, I guess. But yeah, we're going to do Ushabti Bone on the parchment, as well as the bone of the head, which is the one that I have chosen. But there is also his chest that has like that rib cage that is on his right-hand side that we're going to do. And then when we're done with this, maybe some white layering next. From Ushabti Bone down to Ulthuan Grey, we are going to be doing highlighting of the white components. Now, I'm not going to show it. Well, I'll show you what I did with the wings, but I'm not going to show me painting the wings because, oh my goodness, it took forever. This is actually what I'm going to be considering done, and that is because if I keep messing with it, I'm just going to end up messing it up. Hence the messing with it. But no, the back and forth that it took to get me just to the point where I was happy with the wings was a lot. So what it is it's a layer of Ulthuan Grey and then some white scar on the edges, as well as, I don't know if you could see, it's actually all the way up about halfway white scar pulled down. And you can't really see it, and that's why I figured I was done, because I was putting a ton of effort into not getting a huge result. The Nuln Oil seemed really, really dark in some places in between. So I ended up going back with some Eshin Grey, I think it was Eshin Grey. Really watered down, which also allowed me to be really messy with the Ulthuan and then come back with a thin brush and just kind of come through here. But that's not part of the actual Judicator. That's just kind of my own take on the Judicator, as well as other people's takes. But it's white. It was painted that way. So, but what is part of the Fulminator Judicator that I am doing is this white shoulder pad. Now, white is a tricky color to say. It is a tricky color to paint with, and the reason is I have no idea why. But I think it's because it's just so transparent no matter what layer you're putting on. So just make sure you've got a nice thinned down layer, because what you want to do is you want to make sure it goes on as flat as possible, because you are going to be doing multiple coats, and the more coats you put on, the more chances you have of having those lines starting to basically build up on one each other and giving like a texture look to it. So we want to avoid that. So you want it going on, essentially kind of watery, but just know that you're not going to be able to do this in 1 or 2 coats. I would say most of my whites take like 3 to 5-ish, because I don't want them to I want them to go on smooth, So there you go. So we're going to color this, and then originally I had actually thought about doing the what do you call it, the hourglass in white as well, since it's the Fulminator, and I was trying to add a little bit of extra white to it. But when I did kind of like a test on it, I didn't like how it was turning out with the Ulthuan, because I wanted to be able to highlight with white scar to try and make it look like it had a reflection. So I ended up going back a step and painting that. Apparently I'm not going to use it because I can't find it. Anyways, the hourglass I ended up painting in Celestra Grey again, and then just using that as the overall white with contrast and whatnot. But you'll see it later, provided I actually can find it. So let's finish this up, and then we will move on to, a leather at that point, maybe. You can tell I'm hiding from the leather again by taking forever to get to it. But I do want to try and finish this video because, oh man, it's been forever since I finished one, and I'm really excited to see what it looks like when I'm done. So. All right, here is where we are at. The wings are now glued on. This one has broken off twice so far, so I'm going to have to go back, and I don't know if you can see it's a little shinier in there. It's not because it's wet, but it is because it now has super glue in it. And the super glue will hopefully hold a little bit better than my hopes and dreams did to keep it in place. So anyways, what we are now going to do is we are going to move on to the edge highlighting of the leather. Now, the leather, the way I'm seeing it is there's really 2 ways you can do it. You can do it either or, or a combination of the two. And I'm going to attempt a combination of the two. Now, the combination that I'm referring to is, you can see I've already done a bit of edge highlighting with Gorthor Brown, which is the brown that I am using. And I just did a very, very thin edge highlight on most of the pieces. I got to hit things like this, this fold right here. And I will try to do that. See, I'm just doing very, very lightly on the very highest point, something like that. If you do too much, or if the brown just like stands out way too much, use a little bit of the Rhinox Hide and water it way down, almost like you're trying to make a glaze out of it. In fact, because that's what you're trying to do. And then just go over the top of it like I did that here, where this line that is the very sharp fold, I made that far too bright the first time I went through, and then went back and glazed it down a bit. But so we are doing the edge highlighting around the dark brown of the robe first. Now, once this is all done, it's going to look pretty good. And I know that because, well, me personally, and I'm not saying like, oh, I'm really good, you should check out everything I do. But, you know, there's lots of videos on the playlist to prove that I'm not the greatest at everything. But anyways, the idea is that once you are done with this, it will be nice and edge highlighted, and it will look good because, I mean, personally, I think it looks good as is. But what we are going to do as well is we will go and try to make a little bit of scratches. Now, the scratches are different than the highlighting. I'm not going to do scratches up and down this fold right here because that just happens to be where the cloak is currently folded, so the light would be hitting it more. So that's why I also might go back and mute this a little bit more with another layer of that Rhinox Hide glaze. But we will go in and add, and I might add a couple right now, live dangerously. But like down here where the cloak may have been scraping the ground, we can go in and we can add just little scratches and little at random angles, maybe not that thick as the one I just did. But see, we're just adding a little bit of texture to the cloak where it might have seen the most wear and tear. This fold here, you can go and add if you want. Maybe I'll add a couple up like that. Just, you can see them very, very lightly. I don't want to put a whole lot on. But so we're just trying to give it a little bit of texture because leather, I was watching something on how to paint it, and the way the guy described it, and if I can remember the video or if I can find it, I will put it in the links. But the way it's described is basically you have the tanned leather is the top portion, that's the darkest portion of the leather, and then as it cracks, it exposes the inner portion which didn't get tanned, which means it's the original color of whatever leather it was. So what this would represent is as it's getting scratched and as it's breaking open, you're going to have a lighter color. Now, I'll go in and I'm going to add not only the Gorthor Brown, I'm going to add some Baneblade Brown in. But again, I'm not going to go kind of over the top with it. I don't want to go too crazy. Let me go back and show an example again of the helmet or the hood. The hood. So let me get it to focus. So we got the hood here, and again, edge highlight. Oh, come on, focus now. We got the edge highlights all around the whole all of the hard angles that are kind of following the helmet that might be underneath that. And then I just came back and did little scratches here and there as just to kind of show it. I just want it to pretend or give the idea, the effect, hopefully when we're all done, that it is a different texture and material than just the bone or the armor or the metal, things like that. So that's the goal. We're going to do that with all of the leather colors. I may not show it all because I'll do a little bit of each color, probably if I just pad for some runtime. But I'm going to go through and I'm going to put a little bit of the Thunderhawk Blue will be highlighted. Actually, I already did the edge highlighting. I could show you. Hold still. It's the first time I've hit that since I moved it. Anyways, fine edge highlight around there. And gosh, inside the cloak, way under here. So the idea is I'm going to use the Thunderhawk Blue. light scratches on the blue leather of the gloves and the inside of the cloak. We will do an edge highlight of Gorthor Brown on the dark portions of the dark cloak, dark leather of the cloak, that is, and Skrag Brown will be for the holsters. I will film a little bit of that. I may have already put some of that in, and oh, at least it's a little, boy, the wing did not break off that time, so I guess I'll consider myself lucky. Anyways, now that I've thrown on an extra couple minutes, hopefully I'll put some painting videos in there so you can see all of that, but then we can save ourselves another 10 minutes of explanation. Starting off, we're going to be using a little bit of Pallid Wych Flesh. Now, this is for any parchment on the model. It is the fine edge that I like to put on just the outer portions, or any really sharp lines that run through the parchment paper. Next up, I'm going to be using a little bit of Screaming Skull as a, again, fine edge highlight. Maybe a little bit of a thin layer. You decide which is which. But this will be for all of the bone pieces, which on this model are going to be the rib cage area as well as the skull. On the normal Judicar helmet, it's not there, but since I use the Chaplain here, we're going to be highlighting the bone on the face. Moving now on to a little bit of Baneblade Brown, and for this we are going to be focusing on, again, more little scratches throughout the leather. Wouldn't recommend doing an edge highlight, a whole lot of it, because this will really change the look of the cloak. But overall, if you've got any other areas where you did a lot of scratching with the Gorthor Brown, follow it up with a little bit of Baneblade Brown. Very little bit, in my mind. Same thing, we're going to use a little bit of Jokaero Orange now on the lighter portions of the leather. And this, again, is to just hit all of the edges with little stippling, tapping motions, and any of the scratches that we put throughout the just the lighter browns to make it, look a little bit more like leather, hopefully. One more spot of leather here, and that is the Fenrisian Grey, that it's going to be used as the final highlight on the blue gloves, I think, and as well as the interior of the cloaks. So again, a little bit here, not a whole lot. You just want to kind of call out the higher portions and anywhere that might have a little more damage, which you already did with the other blue. To do the script that is on the parchment, I like to use a little bit of Rhinox Hide. All I use is my palette, and then I water it way down, and then knock most of it off the brush so that I get a really fine tip and really tiny lines. You can stipple back and forth and kind of like go up and down. If you do make any mistakes, clean up with a little bit of the Ushabti Bone, again, thinned down, and you can almost draw in between any browns if you did it too heavy. So while I didn't record me painting it, here is the hourglass complete. The hourglass is painted with Abaddon Black, and then I used Incubi Darkness on the sand portions, as well as stippling in a little bit of Thunderhawk Blue over the top of that to try and give it a little bit of a grainier texture. I then highlighted or tried to call out a reflection using Ulthuan Grey, and overall came out okay. And once again, it is that time of the video to say, hey, look, my desk is clean. That's actually the very first time I've said that. And it's not actually clean. You can't see past over there. It's still very dirty. It needs a lot of organization. But at least where I'm framing it, it looks kind of all right. Anyways, also, the Judicar's done, A lot of fun painting this model. The addition of the wings and the separate helmet that I had, how I did that video somewhere, either down there or up there, wherever it ends up being. I like it. I like the model a lot.
Could I have done a lot better on the leather? I don't know. I'd like to think I could, but I think a lot of times in this hobby, me and maybe other people, maybe you perhaps, you get stuck on what you think you want it to look like, and you don't even know where you are in your skill progression. Like, I looked at a lot of other I looked at a lot of other pictures online of leather on these models in particular, leather on other models, how to paint leather, all kinds of different things. And I realized, well, I don't even know where I'm at. So I had to start somewhere. And so this is the first model that I've really tried to do more than just like the armor pouches. And I think it came out pretty good. Could I have done better? Yes. Will I do better next time? Yes. Why? Well, I've practiced on this one. So I think overall, a lot of us, myself included, need to get over it's like a painter's block of, I want it to look a certain way, and you don't start because you don't know if you'll get there. So best thing I can say, and it worked for me at least, was I just started. And as soon as I saw what the edge highlights were looking like, I was happy with what it looked like, even just like that. So beyond that, a little bit of scratches here and there, we're good to go. So if you made it this far into the video, thank you very much for watching. I do want to thank anyone who has subscribed so far. I was not expecting more than a couple. And I don't mean a couple hundred, I literally mean a couple, and now we're at 350. So we'll see where we get in another year or so. I'm going to keep on putting content out when I can, and hopefully people keep enjoying it. So if you did like what you see, subscribe, comment, share it with people you know, hit the little notification bell. Trust me, it won't go off very often. But yeah, thank you for joining me, and we will see you next time.